Hey guys, welcome back. This last weekend, I brought Cricket over to the Windy Hollow Hunt Dressage Show, which was a 3-day show at the Sussex County Fairgrounds in Augusta, New Jersey. Since I just moved down to New Jersey from Connecticut, it actually only took me about an hour to get to the showgrounds, but I was meeting up with my trainer and my friends from Connecticut while I was there. This was Cricket's first show of the season, and I was really pleased with how he did, although he definitely pointed out some areas for us to work on. Training's been a little bit harder this year because we just moved and we don't have any sort of arena set up, so I have to either trailer out down the road or ride in the fields, which have been getting kind of muddy. So before I registered for this show, I actually took Cricket over to the farm right down the road and rode through my tests, and his canter was feeling fantastic. So I decided to bring him for all 3 days, and I was feeling really good about it. However, the last couple of days leading up to the show, his canter just wasn't feeling very great, and I was starting to get a little bit worried. I ended up finding in the warm-up that it was probably good to take him out for a very forward canter or even a hand gallop, and that was trying to get his canter back to a good spot. With Cricket's canter, it's a really delicate balance of trying to make sure he's forward enough, but also that I'm sitting him back on his hind end so that the canter stays 3 beat and a good quality. I wouldn't say I was thrilled with the quality of his canter the entire weekend, but I will say every time I brought him into the ring, it actually looked a little bit better than it felt in the warm-up, so at least there's that. The other problem we ran into was some straightness. In one of my prep rides, I had noticed that Cricket had gotten a little bit crooked down the center line and across the long diagonals, so I worked a lot on practicing straightness with him, but I didn't really give it much thought in the warm-up, and so when I went in for my first test on Saturday, Cricket came down the center line, and not on the center line. He wouldn't move off of my leg. He was super crooked, and it was kind of a bad start to the test. So in the rest of my warm-ups, I did make sure that he was moving off of my leg in both directions, and after that, he was really nailing the straightness. With Cricket, it's not that he forgets his training, it's just some days he doesn't feel like doing it, so you have to kind of negotiate that ahead of time before you go into the ring. Other than him being kind of a turkey down both center lines, I was actually really happy with Cricket during this test. In order to get enough juice in him to make it through all of the canter in training 3, I think I had him a little too jazzed up, and so we lost some marks in the trot where it wasn't as relaxed as it could have been. But overall, I thought the canter was really nice in this test, and I thought Cricket did a pretty nice job. I'm also throwing away some points in the serpentine because, as it turns out, I do not know how to ride an accurate serpentine. I'll call it one of the perils of riding without a ring, but I tend to ride them very squared off, and they're really supposed to be 3 back-to-back half circles. So this was our second ride of the day. It was training 2, and I actually thought this was a huge improvement over our first test, which was the one you just saw, training 3. In this test, Cricket came down the center line straight. He did have a weird moment where he stuck his tongue out over the bit, but he slipped it back in and back where it was supposed to be and carried on as normal, and either the judge didn't see it or didn't mark us down for it, so I think we ended up getting a 7 on that center line as opposed to our previous 5. The rest of this test went really well. He actually was forward enough for the trot and forward enough for the canter. He was really straight across that long diagonal. I think, again, that one was a coefficient score, and it got a 7.5. If you don't know what a coefficient score is, in dressage, certain movements are weighted more heavily by counting that movement twice towards your score. So when you add up the total number of points, you multiply that score by 2. So unfortunately, in the left lead canter, he had a really big trip. You can't really tell, but the footing was pretty bad there. So what I really should have done was asked for a smaller canter, but I was already thinking about how I was going to get enough canter to make it through, again, all of the canter in training 2. So hindsight's 20/20, but actually this test, even with that 4 coefficient, for the canter that we messed up, ended up scoring pretty well, and we got a lot of 7s throughout the test, including a 7 on his right lead canter. So on our last day, I rode through training 3 again. I was also supposed to ride through training 2, but I was tired and Cricket was tired, so I decided to scratch it and we would just go home a little bit early. This attempt at training 3 was definitely one of our best rides of the weekend. The trot was a little bit more relaxed. My serpentines continued to be inaccurate, but there weren't really any major mistakes, except I did feel like Cricket started to get a little bit tired and didn't quite make it through his left lead canter in this test. Overall, it was a good test to end the weekend with. Cricket really improved down the center line and with his halts, and I felt like this test was where I really figured out how I can get the right balance of having Cricket forward enough to make it through the canters, but not so forward that he's too tense to have a nice trot. Cricket actually ended up winning this class out of a fairly sizable group, so I was really happy with that, and we left the show with a little bit of homework. I'm personally going to work on figuring out the geometry of my serpentines. I'm also going to work on building up Cricket's fitness so that we can make it through all of the canters and all of his tests. And hopefully the next time Cricket and I are out, we'll be nailing our serpentines, nailing our center lines, nailing our canter transitions, and hopefully we can continue to improve on these rides. I'm not sure what Cricket's next outing is going to be, but I am planning to take him to the Standardbred National Show. So hopefully by the time we get there, we've really worked out some of the kinks. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to follow along for more updates on Cricket at home, at shows, and at expos, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching!